Since it's the holiday, the non-Jewish holiday season, we wanted to talk about things that have to do. Today's actually Xmas, so we traditionally, many of the last few years, 10 years, we've done classes that have to do about, Avodah Zarah.
Some people don't learn tonight, huh?
Yeah, last night, Eve.
Last night?
The Eve they didn't learn. But since Noitzrim are considered Avodah Zarah, so Rav OVADIA has a fascinating tshuva. Why is Noitzrim, Christianity considered Avodah Zarah? Because they bow down to an image. So the question today's shir is based on Rav OVADIA's YOSEF, Volume 3, Teshuvah 64, which is, it used to be, some tzaddikim, we'll see, the Lubavitcher Rebbe talks about it, not because of Avodah Zarah, because of a different reason, which is an interesting thing. But, there were certain tzaddikim that they were very, very, if they would ever buy a doll for their child, they would rip off a body part, because it looks like a idol, right? It's like an image of a human. So the question of today's shir is a person allowed to buy dolls? Is he allowed to buy them? Is he allowed to manufacture them? Is he allowed to sell them? Because in the Torah, the Gemara says, I just want to make something clear. A drawing is much different than a three-dimensional image, like a statue because in the olden days, people would take these three-dimensional images and bow down to them, right? And this was a big problem. If any person learns Torah, Nevi'im and Ksuvim, Eliyahu and all the prophets came to reprimand and chastise and prophesy and take the Jews away from Avodah Zarah, right? So we're going to start the shir. So the shir starts that there is a Gemara, Talmud Bavli, Gemara Avodah Zarah, Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, 43b. It says clearly over there, Sha'asur la'asot surat adam boletet. It's a Gemara that it's forbidden for us to make a statue. This year is also Nagea. Actually, believe it or not, I wanted to give this class many times because some people in SMC or UCLA, some of the people ask me, is it for them to take sculpting thing? It's a class given in universities and community college.
What class?
It's you make a sculpture.
Okay, I know.
So is that allowed? The Gemara in Avodah Zarah clearly says that it is forbidden for a person to make a statue of a human. Because, right, the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed because many of the Jews people used to take these statues and it used to be, that's unfortunately the business Avram's father was in, right? Terach was in. And such statues were for the vast majority of human history bowed down to, right? Even there's still many Eastern societies that still bow down to statues, right? So the Gemara says it's clearly asur. Now, one of the Baalei Tosafot that wrote a sefer, like a sefer Achinuch, the Samag, Rabbeinu Moshe Mikutzi, that wrote the sefer Samag, which he delineates the 613 commandments, when he's talking about the commandment that it's forbidden to do. By the way, if you read the 10 Commandments, the Aseret Adibros, it clearly says there you shouldn't make an image either of God. And since they used to worship humans, right? Lo ta'asin. So the Samag is very machmir. He says even to make a bust, a sculpture only of a head, he holds it's asur min ha'Torah, based on this Gemara. Even if it's not the whole body of the human being with arms, legs, and a chest, the Sefer Smag holds that even that is asur. Now it's interesting to note that the Rosh and the Tosfos, they argue. So it's a machlokes rishonim. According to the Smag, not only is it usher to make a sculpture, a statue of a human being, let's say you just want to make it of the face, of his head. The Smag holds that's usher. On the other hand, Tosfos, in that same Gemara, Daf Avodah Zarah Mem Gimel Lamed Beis, and the Rosh, they say no. The Gemara is only forbidding to make a full body statue, which is like similar to a replica of a human body, right? So it has a face and, the whole shebang. But if you just want to make a sculpture of the head without the rest of the body, they hold it, that's mutter. That's not even a discussion, right?
The what?
They hold that's permitted, right? This that the Talmud is forbidding based on the Ten Commandments and this whole thing of idol worship, right? Because the Torah says, if you're in the business of manufacturing idols, then obviously eventually you're going to come to bow down to them, right? Similar to the reason that Chachamim said it's usher to own a non-Jewish supermarket or restaurant, right? So the question here is that how does the Mordechai also concurs with that? One of the great Rishonim, the Mordechai also concurs with the sheet of the Tosfos and the Rosh that we're saying it's usher to make a sculpture or a statue is only the whole body. The face itself is mutar. So let's read the Shulchan Aruch. Rav OVADIA brings down the Shulchan Aruch. If you want to look, it's actually a fascinating part of Shulchan Aruch, which I've never seen Rabbanim, very few people give shiur. It's very, obscure, not taught so much, but it's in YOSEF, the second volume of Shulchan Aruch, chapter Kuf Mem Aleph. It talks all the laws of Avodah Zarah, right? Parenthetically, if you look over there, based on the Gemara and Avodah Zarah, you can't make statues of angels either, or the sun, or the moon. It's the same Isser. Because the Ten Commandments says, things that are celestial, from the heavens, we're not allowed to make sculptures and statues of. Now, the Shulchan Aruch happens to paskin like the Tosfos. So what does the Shulchan Aruch say over there in chapter Yoredeya 141, Seif 4? Sha'asur l'sayer surat adam afilu nunuyoi. Obviously, if you're doing it for idol worship, right, even if you want to sell it to a goy, it's asur. But let's say you're just doing it for beauty. Anybody that's been to Europe, the whole thing is
A sculpture.
sculptures, right? This is absolutely forbidden for Jews to be in such a business, right? Even if you're just doing it for beauty, it's the Shulchan Aruch says asur. Even more than that, afilu asa goy, even if a Gentile, a non-Jew, was the creator of the statue, he procured and developed the statue, carved the statue. It's forbidden for a Jew to own it. Okay, this is what the Shulchan Aruch says. B'mei dvar mamurim, under which circumstances is this? If it's a three-dimensional statue of a human being. So even if a goy made it, it's also for you to own it, to buy it off a goy. But if it's shokas, if it's like a tapestry, right? Or like a picture of like Mona Lisa, right? Like, well, that's not even so awesome because that's only kind of, it's not a whole body. But let's say it's a full body tapestry of human beings. But it's only two-dimensional, right? It's like on a rug. Then anything that's woven and some stuff like that, or like it's a drawing on a mural on a wall, the Shulchan Aruch says, that's not only is it okay for you to own, so to have a goy do it, even a Jew could draw such pictures, right? But let's say you're a rabbi and you want to teach your talmidim that this is usher to do, like for show and tell, right? You want to teach them that, then it's okay to do, because you're not making it, you're teaching, you're giving a person show and tell, right? You're giving them a three-dimensional thing of what they should avoid. So he says if you want to do it for educational purposes and teach people such things are asur, then it's mutter to even have a three-dimensional thing. And the Shulchan Aruch further on in Halacha number 7 says, Sha'af besura boletet lo asur ledavka she'i surat shlema b'chol evareha. This is a very important this is the minhag why people, some of the very pious religious people, when they buy a doll for their kid, they rip off the nose or the ear, because the Shulchan Aruch says even if it's usher to own or for sure develop a statue, if it's missing one of its limbs, because again, what's the idea? A person is gonna only worship a idol that is full, right? If its eye is ripped out or its nose is ripped out or other thing, then that's not something respectable anymore. Aval partsuf adam beli guf. So he says, and again, so if it's only the head or if it's missing a body part, it's not only is it mutter to own it, it's even mutter to make it, right? So it comes up. Sometimes a person has to take, according to he wants to get his credits to become a lawyer, doctor, whatever, and the only class that fits his schedule is sculpturing. So, right, probably better not to take it. But if you create a sculpture, it has to be missing one of the body parts, right? Especially if it's missing in the face, then it's for sure something that no conceivable, bona fide, normal idolater would bow down to such a thing, right? Because it's pagum, it's deformed. So now it's interesting. One of the great Sephardic Rishonim that was a contemporary of the Shulchan Aruch, the Maharit, he unfortunately has a minhag of a lot of time arguing on the Shulchan Aruch because he was in the same generation as him, and the Shulchan didn't become such a, you understand?
Right,
the de facto thing. He was like in the same generation. He was a contemporary of Rabbi Yosef Karo. So sometimes he does argue on the psukim of Yosef Karo. He happens to paskin like the smag. And he says, even if you just sculpture a face alone, without the body, it's asur. And he holds the Rosh's Rebbe, the Maran Rutenberg, also held like that. And the Yavitz, which was one of the great poskim, he says something also very interesting about this. He says that Tosfot and Rosh, lo etiru ela b'shihiyah, they only allow you to own a statue of a bust, right? If you ever go to the museums in Washington, D.C., you'll see it's a common thing they do at presidents. Or they did it of Martin Luther King. They don't do the whole body, they just do like the head. So he says that Yavitz's Chiddush is that the poskim, he argues on the Shulchan Aruch. He says the Shulchan Aruch misunderstood. That the poskim allowed is, a Jew is never even allowed, according to all opinions, to make a bust, a statue of a head. That the other Rishonim, the Taisus and the Rosh allowed, that was only for a Jew to own it, right? To buy it off a goy. But the Sephardic poskim and Rav OVADIA, Rav Chaim Filaji, they all argue on this. They say no such thing. The halacha is like the Shulchan Aruch, based on the shita of the Mordechai and the Rosh and the Tosfot, that a human being that only the statue, in Iran also, my parents used to own this. A lot of people, they have like, like Hasidic Jews or very yeshivish Jews, they have a china closet full of their silver. So a lot of people in Persia, they used to put like porcelain things of different human beings and stuff. It was a minhag. Actually, somebody asked me this because he had given a shir in his house. The Rav came to shir. The Rav said you have to throw all these stuff out of your china cabinet. So this is a it's a very nageh shir. A lot of people, they collect art. People go to China. People go around the world, and some women are very into collecting these porcelain dolls and stuff. Or people, for example, they'll go to Florida and they'll buy a thing of a dolphin. That's going to be in the end of this year. But sometimes, people collect different figurines. That's not even toys. It's like a type of art, 3-dimensional art, sculptures. Not big ones, but small ones that they put in their china closet, right? So definitely the Zera Emet, which was one of the great poskim of Italy, also concurs with Rav Chaim Filaji and Rav OVADIA's understanding that yes, we Sephardim, we hold that as long, for sure, even if you want to be a sculptor and you just want to make a bust without the head, statue of the head only, without the rest of the body, it's even mutter for us to do, for a Jew to be the sculptor, right? And so I looked up the Sefer. It's a fascinating teshubah in the Zera Emet that he, when he talks about this, he says a fascinating case. Again, so this does come up. He said that there was a very wealthy Jew in Italy that, you know how we Sephardim, we put on our Sefer Torah rimonim, beautiful gold. So a very rich Jew that wasn't so religious, obviously. I think that the Italian Torahs were like the Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim, instead of putting rimonim, they put atara, a crown. So this guy had given one of the great artisans, artists of sculptors of Italy. He had made a atara that had the bodies of the 7 greatest prophets of Jews: Moshe, Aharon, Shlomo, like the crown. It was made out of pure gold.
Actual like pictures?
Yeah. 3-dimensional statues.
Oh wow.
And the question
From
was
gold.
from gold. And he had donated to the shul. So they came to the chief rabbi, Rabbi Ishmael, HaKohen HaGadol, we call him. The Zera Emet, he's a big posek. He's the first posek that talked about vaccination. So they said, what should we do? Because it's a statue, Same problem we have with baby dolls. It was the whole body. I mean, you couldn't see some of the arms, but that was only because Moshe had a cape on,
Right.
So the Zera Emet in the end of the Teshuvah says you could do one of 2 things. He says, first of all, go away, sell it
To a goy.
a goy, and then melt the gold down, make a new one. Because this was a lot of the greatest, Italy's
Make a
full of
new
the biggest
one,
artists and sculptures. Make a new crown for the Torah, or
Not
remoney.
the sculptures anymore.
It's not a sculpture of a whole, because this sculpture was a full body, it had a head, body, feet, and it had the 7 different, I guess it was a round thing. So each one was said, this is Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shlomo, David, right?
Wow.
So he said that it's asur. Either you have to get rid of it, take it off. For sure, you should take it off the Torah, and then melt it down. Or you have to break off each one of the, things. You have to break off a part of the body. So take one of the arms off Moshe or something. Because not to be disrespectful, but that's just the halacha. Kemosha Amar Shemuel LaRab. This is what the Gemara says, that Shemuel had such a statue. Shemuel told his Talmud, Rav Yehuda, Sami Ein Edidan, take out one of the eyes, right? Of the sculpture. You could take off the noses of all the different things. But in the tshuva, you see that you see clearly the Zera Emet also held like Rav Chaim Filaji in the way we understand the Shulchan Aruch, not the way the Yavitz understands. That this is, if you're only making the body, if you're only making the head, the bust, then even for a Jew to be the sculptor, it's okay. Because you also have to understand, there's 2 different halachas here. One is the Jew allowed to be the sculptor? Second halacha is, are you allowed to own something that a goy made? So if you're allowed to even be the sculptor, the Jew is allowed to be the one that forms the image and carves it, then for sure you're allowed to own it. You understand? Because there's always less of a heter for that. Now, this is the heter, because we know all Jews in the world, Baruch Hashem, I want to tell you something beautiful. Every time the rabbi blesses his congregation on Shabbat, by the Sefer Torah, it says the bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he says in Parshat Devarim, Yosef Hashem alechem kachem elef ha'amim, ve'ivarech etchem kasher diber lachem. So, Baruch Hashem, my Rebbe HaRav Eliezer ben David said that this bracha of Moshe Rabbeinu is possible now. Because he says he personally knows friends, each one of them have 10 kids, and each one of those 10 kids has 10 kids. So they have 1,000 grandkids. So Baruch Hashem, if you have thousands of grandkids, you're going to these kids need some toys. So now we're going to get into the heter, why we obviously see from Jews, for Hanukkah, for different things, they buy for their children, for their grandchildren, dolls. So he says everything that we spoke about till now is only talking about a statue. So this also you have to keep in mind. In this halacha, it's definitely have to be more machmer if you're the one that are the sculptor, right? That's a higher barometer to be machmer. Secondly, if something is made out of a hard metallic or ceramic material that's made to last forever, right? Or like that Sefer Torah, the Zera Emet, right? The crown for the Torah. It's something that's made to last. It's a very respectable, made to last for generations. Like the statues that you find in Europe, right? They're made out of marble. It's a permanent. But he says a doll, it's made for fun, to play with. Okay, even though it's a Barbie doll or a doll that he says, Rav OVADIA argues and says there's no isur to a doll. And he says, why is that? So he says there's no, if you it may be a good idea because so many of our kids have become there's damage to their neurology from it being addicted to these smartphones. They have too much screen time. So like when the kids are off, it's not bad to like shave and make a homemade doll, like a wooden doll, right? He says that dolls that are made for children to play with is mutar. It's mutar to create them. For sure it's mutar to buy them. And it's for sure you don't have to throw them away, right? Not like that rabbi that came to the guy was freaking out because he's like, Rabbi, my house is full of these different small statues that we've collected throughout the years. So that's different than a doll because those are something that are, you understand? That's not the scope of this year. That perhaps, we could talk about in a different year. And he brings something from one of the great poskim called, I wasn't aware of this sefer, but his name is Rabbi, the sefer Mekor Chaim. The sefer Mekor Chaim, he was one in the 1700s. This is already almost 300 years ago. He was the chief rabbi and the head of the Beis Din in Brisk. Brisk was one of the most learned and pious city. He already gives a heter 300 years ago for dolls. Why? And this is what he argues. That it's a toy. Toy is different than a statue. Understand? Toy by definition is something that could easily break. It used to be you could buy them in a 99-cent store, these dolls, right? Or $1 is worthless now, but in Target and Walmart you could find some for $4 or $5. And he says something very important. And that is that Tosfos says, why did Hashem ask a Jew to create images of a human being? He said because of Avodah Zarah. Because, right, we're worried that you're going to make this into an idol. So since the Torah, we're so monotheistic, right? We want to go so far away from idol worship. We say don't even have an image of a statue of a human being, right? But nobody in the history of mankind has bowed down to a toy doll. Yachah? It's not such an honorable and valuable. It's not like a golden thing of cheese and crackers, right? Right? Of Jesus. It's not an honorable thing that people revere. It's a toy that we're going to see later. One of the poskim says the proof to this is people that you let your kid take it to the toilet. You take it. If your kid is a little bit fanatical and hyper, it could rip its head off, right? It's not something that is esteemed or precious or, people think too. And one of the Mefarshim, again, another one of the Achronim it's a sefer called Nachal Eshkol. He wrote a commentary on one of the Rishonim, Sefer Eshkol. He was one of the regional, before the Shulchan Aruch was written, he was one of the Rishonim that started to codify Jewish law. He says that we see rabbis don't yell and scream at people that own dolls. He says the reason is, or this heter would even apply for people that own these small collectible porcelain like dolls, not dolls, like statues. that they put in their china closet. He says rich people collect this, so why don't the rabbis give them a hard time? So he says, as far he says, it's because the whole reason that Hashem didn't allow Jew to own these or carve these statues is because of idol worship. He says, first of all, the thing is allowed to, if the Beis Din is allowed to create these images, to teach the yeshiva that these are asur, right? So you see, it's not like mamish doing avodah zarah, right? You're never allowed to, even for practice, do avodah zarah. This is trying to distance us ourselves from idol worship. You understand? So he says, nobody in the right mind, even non-Jews, even the most devout idol worshiper, doesn't take ceramic dolls or for sure baby toy dolls, right? And bow down to them. It's like a form of art. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with
any kind of divinity or
any type of religious idolatry. So he says there's no chashad. And he says one of the great achronim, which was the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, was like the Mishnah Berurah, which for a few hundred years everybody passed, like the Sefer Chai Adam in his book. He wrote 2 volumes. He wrote one Sefer Chai Adam on Orchaim, then he wrote another one called Chachmas Adam. He was a student of the Gra. So the Chai Adam in his Sefer Chachmas Adam, Klal, Pei 58, also paskins like this, right? So bona fide achronim, that whole Klal Yisrael accepted, like they were like the head posuk of their time, that all of Klal Yisrael learned their book. Like we learned the Ben Ish Chai, the Chachmas Adam. The Chai Adam is such a revered sefer, right? Just like all Sephardic houses had a copy of the Ben Ish Chai, everybody had the Chai Adam. So the Chai Adam in his book on Yoredeya, the second volume, Shulchan Chachmas Adam holds of this. He says dolls is no problem. And not only that, one of the great Sephardic poskim, the Maharit was one of the chief rabbis, chief poskim of Eretz Yisrael already 500 years ago. What does he write in Shalos Shuas Maharit Yoredeya Siman Lamed Hey? He says, even according to the Rambam, right? I just want to say parenthetically, the Sephardim are much more machmir when it comes to images. Like in a Sephardi shul, you'll never find on the hechal things of animals, right?
What about the pictures of like the Shvatim? The Shvatim have like
that's a problem. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So the Maharit says even so according to Sephardim, for sure 3-dimensional pictures of animals and lions, because lions also is a bigger problem because on the Kisei HaKavod there's a lion, right? The 4 Chayas eagles and these things, and that's, remember I told you celestial things that are like angelic statues are more problematic because it's from the heavens. But he says, the Maharit says, even according to the Rambam, that forbids making a statue of a human being for even beauty, right? That's something that's permanent, right? And what's the biggest proof to that? The material you're making out of it, right? You're making out of marble, you're making it out of bronze, like the statues you find in museums. And since it's such a permanent and expensive material, and this, people may think that, this is something revered, right? It's something that you could confuse with the idol. You understand? That's the reason that the Talmud, the Chazal made it asur. But again, the Maharit already is writing this 500 years ago. Different getchkas, different toys or small things that are made to play with. Like say sheshpesh, or like dice, right? The dice, whatever. It's like a type of toy, again, game. That happens to be the pieces, like chess. Like let's say the chess pieces, right? Let's say it's in the thing of a human being, full body of a human being, like similar to chess, right? Is that going to be usher? No, because this has no similarity to a statue that people would bow down to. This is a game that you're playing with. So he says so these poskim say it's mutter even to sculpture these, form these. And for sure, it's okay to buy them. And you don't have to kick it, sell them and get rid of them, take them out of your house. And again, another one of the poskim, the Priyasadeh, which is, his name was Rabbi Lazar Deutsch. He passed away in the beginning of the 1900s. He was like a contemporary of the Chofetz Chaim. They asked him also in Siman Lamed Chet that is it okay to own a toy store, a doll store? And he says that it's mutter, and he brings a very beautiful raya. He says, look in the Shulchan Aruch, that same chapter 141 in Yaredeya, the third halacha. What does the Shulchan Aruch says? He says, let's say you find different type of you find a certain utensil that has the picture of the sun and the moon on it, right? That's also a big no-no. It's the same similar isser because people used to worship the sun and the moons, right? So he says, or a dragon, like people used to, like the Buddha, they used to worship dragons. So he says, depends. If you find, right, you're a treasure hunter, you go in the middle of an alley and you see a beautiful utensil that has these on it. So you're allowed to keep it, or should you be worried that it is associated with idolatry? So the Shulchan Aruch says depends. If it's like a necklace and a very expensive material type of item, right? And people commonly, like a cross that has the picture of Jesus on it. So if you're worried people actually worship this, then it's not. You're not allowed to. But if it's just you find beautiful china and it has a picture of the sun and moon on it, right? Like teacups or pots or pans. They're very expensive material and they have these on it. Nobody worships their pots and pans or anything like that. So he says it's for sure okay. And he says the same svara by dolls. People, again, like I said before, they let their kid take their doll into the dirt, into the bathroom, into wherever, right? It's nothing that has any. So he says it's mutar. And not only that, the great Rosh Hashiva Volozhin, Rav Chaim Volozhiner's grandson, the Netziv, in his Emek HaShe'elah, he also concurs with this, that he says nowadays nobody uses dolls for idol worship, right? It's nothing. Statues is different than dolls, right? So you have to be. It's a different thing. It's like comparing apples and oranges, two different things. A statue is a different thing than a doll. So he says, according to the Bir Hagra there, Sif Katan Yud Chet in Shulchan Aruch, he says, according to all these Rishonim, the She'il Tot, that Rav Hai Gaon wrote, and the Rambam, and the Ramban, and the Tosfos, and the Ran, that to make a statue is only Aser She'en Lachush L'Shat. There's nothing intrinsically wrong in making the statue, right, on itself, right? If you just make a statue for the sake of making a statue, according to these five great Rishonim, Rav Hai Gaon, the Rambam, the Ramban, the Tosfos, and the Ran, the whole reason that's also to make it is because of idol worship, right? But again, a doll has nothing to do with that. I don't think anybody in the history of mankind has worshipped any of these dolls, right? It's a different thing than statues. So, since the majority of the Rishonim say that the whole Isser is because it's also to make the human sculpture, because you may worship it, right, as Avodah Zarah. But there's nothing intrinsically wrong in it, right? In itself. So he says that's why nowadays everybody buys dolls and there's no problem. And he brings from many other poskim. And that's why Rav OVADIA concludes that it's okay to own a manufacturing company of dolls. And for sure it's mutter to be a wholesaler or retailer of dolls, and to buy them for your children and grandchildren, and you should have a lot of nachas from that. I just wanted to bring that the minhag of Lubavitch they hold that these dolls or stuffed animals that you buy, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I want to thank Rabbi Metzger. Remember Mendel? His son just got married in Hebron, so I asked him what their shita was, because I had heard that he brought something very interesting. He says that not because of Avodah Zarah, just because remember we've been mentioning this the last few weeks, that whatever you see, you get connected to. So he says that just like when a woman comes out of a mikveh it's very important that the Gemara says she shouldn't go to a zoo or see a dog or something tameh. He said children are very impressionable, their souls are very pure. So the minhag of the Chabad Hasidim is that the Rebbe said only to allow kosher animals as dolls. It's like Shamu is no good because it's a killer whale. Or Mickey and Minnie Mouse is no good. Donald Duck would be okay because the duck is kosher. So Hashem should help us to always be pure, to know that Hashem is Echad, U'Shmo Echad. Amen.
Amen.